big horse racing story, Churchill Downs. After 3 years of litigation, they lifted the ban on Bob Baffert. This went on way too long. I thought it was condescending how they acted towards him. This all spins back to 3 years ago. The Derby winner, Medina Spirit, tested positive for an illegal ointment. Baffert wrote a letter to Churchill Downs within the last month, indicated that I take responsibility for what happened. That was my stable. That was my horse. That was my trainer. Now, he had been utterly defiant through the first 2.5 years. And because Churchill Downs said, you violated this, you had a history of this. And he said this was a pure accident. He was totally defiant. So therefore, they banned him. They banned him from the Kentucky Derby, other horse racing federations, New York, California. They banned him too because they had to go coinciding with the Kentucky thing. But when the 2-year ban ended, the others lifted the embargo and they took Baffert horses in New York and California and Del Mar, if you will. But Churchill kept it in for a third straight year because he was still fighting them and he had sued him and that case got thrown out of court, etc. But he finally wrote a letter and said, I take responsibility. They immediately lifted the ban. So Baffert is back. All his horses will now be available to run in the Triple Crown races starting at Churchill Downs next spring and obviously have been continued to run. So that's a big item. Formula One racing, man, is there controversy. Hungarian Grand Prix. There is huge controversy what happened on Sunday. Team McLaren finishes 1 and 2 in the race. Over the final 15 laps, they got on the headset with their top driver, Lando Norris, who has really had a good second half of the season. And they pleaded with him to give up the lead. His teammate, Oscar Piastris, was in second place. Lando was in first, and they pleaded for 15 laps. We want you to drop from 1 to 2. Let Oscar pass you. Let him win the race. And Norris kept arguing with him. What they wanted was they wanted Lando Norris to drop to second place. He'd pick up prize money, pick up driver points. They wanted Lando to block Lewis Hamilton, who they thought was going to try to make a run to the lead. Well, Lando's got all this experience, and he successfully blocked Sir Lewis and Team Mercedes from making the pass. They were afraid if Norris won the race and Oscar dropped into second place because he was so inexperienced, and Oscar was not going to be able to hold Lewis Hamilton off. Instead, finally, with more than a lap to go, Lando Norris agreed to pull over, let Oscar go by, pull back in. He blocked Lewis Hamilton. They're fixing a race. Is that not some violation of an F1 rule? They're fixing the race, even though McLaren finished 1-2. See, to me, it seems like they're fixing the race. And it wouldn't be a Sunday if we weren't talking about Team Red Bull and Max Verstappen. And speaking of people who are really unhappy, they are really upset at Team Red Bull. This is going to wind up in divorce court. You might even see it on your TV, Judge Judy or whoever that is. Verstappen spent the entire race screaming obscenities at everybody in the pit. He just wasn't running very well. The car setup wasn't good. They don't seem to have the horsepower. He's gone 3 straight weeks now without a win. And this is a guy who had won 16 races out of the first 18. Team Red Bull had just owned the whole F1 series. And evidently, there's just been terrible fallout last night and into today. That just all the junk that was coming out of his mouth, and F1 officials hear all that because they monitor all the communications. They said it was unconscionable that this guy would conduct his business this way. We might be talking about one of the legends of F1 leaving Team Red Bull with all of its resources and all of its success for the last 3 years. That's the reason Lewis Hamilton and Team Mercedes has fallen off the face of the earth, is because of Team Red Bull. And this guy's totally out of control in the cockpit, in the car on race day. And they said the stuff he said to his pit crew, to his engineers, and then about ownership as he was struggling in 5th place and just never able to get back in the race, just abominable. So Divorce Court, baby. Is that show run at 4:30 in the afternoon here in San Diego? I
I
don't
think
know.
it might. I don't know.
Anyhow, John, topics on the table. You want to talk horse racing, auto racing? Go ahead.
Well, the whole bit about auto racing, it reminds me of the Tour de France, where you kind of have the team block the other guys so your Lance Armstrong or whomever can win the thing. But Verstappen's won too damn much. I like seeing new names in this thing. Going back to the Churchill Downs bit, to your point, Bob Baffert absolutely should be back in horse racing. But I just got a comment. I took the family to the Del Mar races over the weekend. Opening day was terrific.
You were the one with the bad hat, right?
I was the one with the bad hat, the big wide brim hat. But it was interesting is when we walked in, there were people protesting against horse racing. Horses have died on the track, yada, yada. And then there's other protesters there that are supporting horse racing because, they're part of the industry. But we got there. It was kind of a weird vibe on opening day. There was nobody in the infield. They said it was sold out, but there were a lot of empty seats. Some of the kiosks where you could bet electronically with your voucher weren't working. So it was kind of a rocky day at Del Mar, but it was, by the way, you were saying like it was really cool there because of the nice ocean breeze.
Yeah, it was 94 degrees in my driveway on Saturday at noon. I said, I'm done with this. So I went to Del Mar Beach and I sat out there at a restaurant and drank and watched stuff on TV. And it was, how it could be 94 inland North County and 71 in Marine Layer in Del Mar is beyond me.
That's San Diego weather for you.
Oh,
microclimate.
Yeah. But anyhow, so I enjoyed it. I was thinking about you losing all your money in that bad hat. I saw a picture of John who was bad. I don't quite understand. Del Mar normally opens on Thursday, right after the 4th of July, but they pushed it back because the Del Mar Fair ended ran long this year, and they pushed it back. So I don't understand where the crowd was at, because that normally draws. I've been out there opening day, it was 43 to 44,000. I don't think.
Oh, not even close.
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised at that. Now maybe off-track betting has changed some things in terms of the turnout, but still a great place. They've done a phenomenal job. I understand about the protesters, but they have done a phenomenal job in terms of their track and the maintenance of the track when they went from the artificial surface back to dirt and how they maintain it. Because they had one really bad summer. I think they had 18 or 21 horses died in one summer slate. And their fatality rate is way down. It's not that way at Churchill Downs and some other places where they're still having a lot of horses go down on training that are running on these artificial surfaces. But Del Mar has kind of become a flag carrier for safety, and they've done a good job. And they were one of the first ones that made the bold decision. We're ripping up this artificial surface, and we're going back to dirt or clay, and this is how we're going to manicure it, how we're going to treat it, how we're going to water it, etc. So historically, it's great. And the Breeders' Cup is coming back in November. And that's a signature event in horse racing. That's the aftermath of all the Triple Crown races. And they would not be coming back if they did not have great respect for everything that the Thoroughbred Club has done there at Del Mar.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special place, Del Mar.
Yeah.
I remember my father-in-law was saying, back in the day that it was Del Mar, Santa Anita, and Hollywood Park were the three classic horse racing tracks in California. And I grew up in Northern California.
Yeah, Golden Gate.
We had Golden Gate. I would live kind of near Bay Meadows, but that was sort of like a minor league, if I recall.
Yeah, and most of those are gone now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the industry's gone through some really bad, challenging times. But Del Mar is a crown jewel. If you've never been to Del Mar, you don't have to go on Saturday when there's a mob scene. Go Friday or go.
The people
Sunday.
Watching on opening day was unbelievable. And it's not necessarily just women with these crazy hats, but it's just women and men that are dressed up for this event. And it was people watching par excellence that day. That was the highlight for me.
I've never seen a guy wear a Hawaiian shirt, which has a picture of gas pumps and trucks on it, but that's what John wore, plus the bad hat that he wore. So, hey, listen,